Lauren Faust is an animator, writer, voice director, and storyboard artist, best known as the creator of the animated series My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. She has also collaborated with her animation husband, Craig McCracken, on the animated series The Powerpuff Girls, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Wander Over Yonder, and one of me and my son's favorite shows, Kid Cosmic. Later, she has also developed, for television, DC Superhero Girls with Warner Brothers for Cartoon Network. Please welcome to the program, Lauren Faust.
Hi, Eric. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We have this great program that doesn't just throw back to cartoons. We analyze everything about them a little bit, and especially, growing up as a kid, being a fan of Saturday morning cartoons, that didn't just come with the show. It came with the cereal. It came with the action figures, the bed sheets, the curtains, the clothes, even. And you have been now with a cartoon, or had been with a cartoon that pretty much exemplified that, My Little Pony. Like, what were some of the favorites of yours, like, growing up as a kid?
This might sound a little strange. I watched Saturday morning cartoons a lot, but really my favorites were Disney movies and Warner Brothers cartoons.
Nice.
Which I think is a little more classic animation, higher budgets. And more artist-driven than the more script-driven shows of say, Saturday morning. I was a little old for this at the time, but still loved it. But I was into Disney afternoons. I liked Gummy Bears a lot.
Nice.
DuckTales, and DuckTales was just, brilliant back then, as well as even Rescue Rangers. But my biggest influences started in my childhood, and it was the classic Disney movies and classic Warner Brothers cartoons.
Clearly, it kind of shows in your own personal style and how refined it is. And it's funny, as I think as an artist, we just want to make fun stuff. Entertaining things. And I don't know if you're like this or if Craig is like this, but a normal animator's office is usually decorated with a lot of toys or things that inspired you as a kid. So if you weren't a collector, before, are you a collector now, like in modern times of like toy? Like, what is your office normally?
I was a collector before, and I am a collector now. Though I'm less of a collector now, but mostly for practical reasons, just simply because between my husband and I, we have so much stuff, we don't have room for anything anymore. So we're a lot more selective than we used to be. But I saved up all my allowance and babysitting money to buy My Little Ponies. When I was little, I was very proud that I had every single one for the first two, I guess you would say, I don't know, I wouldn't say generations, because it was every year they would come out with a new batch. And then I'd be like, oh God, I have to get the next batch now. And I'd start hoarding all my money. And I still have all of them. And my 5-year-old is not allowed to play with them.
Okay, that was my next question to you, was being a parent now, how did playing with My Little Ponies as a younger Lauren help older Lauren develop My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic?
The way I played with My Little Pony inspired how I made the show. It was my favorite toy. No ifs, ands, buts. I wasn't much of a Barbie girl. I liked Strawberry Shortcake, but as soon as ponies came out, it was over for her. So when I was approached to take a stab at it, to pitch an idea for it, I was very wary of working for a toy company, because sometimes if it's the toy first and story next, that wasn't something I was really excited about having to figure out and having to work with. But because it was Pony, I decided to give it a go. And I even was every step of the way, I was very, this will be the meeting where it goes bad, and it just didn't happen. But my initial pitch, when I was first putting the materials together, I dug out my ponies from my childhood. I went through all of them, and all the memories came flooding back of who this one was and who this one was and what their personality was and what that little symbol on their butt meant. Because I think that's what inspired me most about anything when I was a kid. It's like the one that had lightning bolts on her butt, those lightning bolts say something about who she is. The one that has butterflies on her butt, that says something about who she is. So I pulled out the ponies. I kind of found the ones that were like the best archetypes. You know, I used my adult animator brain to go which ones would make the best shows. So what you see on the screen is 100% inspired by the way I played with them when I was a kid. I actually didn't like the show when I was little. I watched a few episodes. I thought they were too babyish. I thought the world building was really weak.
So you had notes, huh?
I had notes. I was 8 and I had notes. And sometimes the pony, they'd lean into kind of bad female stereotypes where the characters were a little catty and not particularly nice to each other. And I think you can have conflict without falling into that kind of snottiness, you know. So I gave up on it real fast, and I said I like the way I play with them better because there's unicorns and Pegasus. Obviously, this is fantasy, you know. So it's like The Hobbit, but with horses. Why not? And I've like, you know, different things in my room would become the mountain, would become the castle, would become the river they have to cross. And then, of course, because I gave them all these personalities, there were interpersonal relationships between the characters themselves. And so when I went to make the show, I kind of pushed aside their marketing research as politely as I could, or as secretly as I could, and kind of, I always say that my creative consultant was my inner 8-year-old. I always went back to what I loved about them and staying true to that, and having faith in audiences that they would like them for the same reasons.
Right. And again, like being someone that grew up on it, you're also telling stories, not just to the kids, but to the parents, right? Like that also grew up watching it.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to make Pony for littles, you know, like I think people think it's a preschool show, but Craig and I have a philosophy with every single one of the shows we've ever made, that even if our target demographic is girls 6 to 11, boys 6 to 11, we want it to be all ages. We want parents to sit down with them and not want to shoot themselves in the head. Because a lot of little kid shows are that way. So the people that I was working with told me that nobody over the age of 7 would ever watch this. They said boys would never watch this. So I kind of said, well, the girls like me who played with My Little Pony in the beginning might like to watch this with their daughter because they're nostalgic for it. And coming off of Powerpuff Girls, I knew boys would watch stuff if you made it, stuff for girls, if you made it compelling, you made it funny, you made it interesting. So that was a big goal of mine, was to try to get, in trying to get parents to watch it with their kids, and maybe older sisters who might be interested, just at least wouldn't get turned off the way I did when I was little. Then we ended up getting this bigger, greater audience that nobody expected, even myself. Right.
And of course, I believe we're talking about the bronies then. Because look, if you're going to talk about a show like My Little Pony, you can't not talk about nostalgia. And then with nostalgia comes fandom. And like you said, like the toy companies were telling you, this is the audience that you're really going to get. Yet you invented an entire new brand of fans in the bronies. Can you talk a little bit about like any, you know, the experience that you've had with fandom and with creating an entirely new, I mean, a new term? You've coined a term.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in regards to bronies, it was absolutely unexpected. I mean, it really, really was. And in fact, there was like a little piece of me that was a little worried that, you know, with the nostalgia that comes with My Little Pony from little girls, there's also the stigma. It was almost like the definition of dumb girl crap. So even though I was trying to steer away from that, I knew there was going to be people who thought that no matter what, no matter how good it was, or no matter how well thought it was, or how much love was put into it, they were going to think, ooh, ponies, rainbow ponies for girls, duh, that's stupid. And that it might actually like hurt my career. So we never expected that kind of a fan base. I thought mom might watch it with kids, a girl 10 or 12 who might be a little nerdy about animation might watch it, and that you know, older brother might not knock the remote control out of your hand and change a channel, and might actually sit down and watch it and never admit it. That's what I thought. And in speaking to that stigma that My Little Pony had, and girls' toys and girls' shows, my theory on how the Brony fandom was launched started with an article on Cartoon Brew that was about myself and Rob Renzetti, who was my head writer on Pony for season 1. The article was called "The Death of Creator-Driven Animation." And it was calling out Rob and I for selling out to work on a toy show that was essentially just a commercial for toys. The author of the article never saw it and was talking about how bad it was.
Surprise, surprise.
He was just assuming that it was going to be bad, because anything for little girls must be stupid, right? So that actually got a weird version of attention. People saw the article, they knew this thing was coming out, they were expecting it to be garbage, and then people turned it on to hate watch it, right? So they were going to watch it and laugh about it and talk to their friends online about how stupid it is. And I watched it unfold. Because as soon as it was released, I was online obsessively looking for feedback and opinions on it. And what I saw within the course of like maybe 3 episodes was people going, dude, you guys, I thought this was going to be dumb, but I think I like it.
It backfired on that author. You know, it's funny, there's a lot of pot stirrers out there. They just want to, you know, rain on everyone's parade, and I feel like I'm so glad that it worked in advertising the show, really. And what's good is good, you know what I mean? Like it's just you've caused such a big wave with it, and it's still here, you know, like it's still present. So gosh.
And I think it grew because, you know, people, it wasn't bad like they expected it to be. Then they found themselves wanting to turn it on again. And then I think what really made it set was that there was some fun and novelty to going like, can you believe I like a girl show? And it made it set even deeper, that this kind of novelty and humor behind these, you know, I'm an adult man and I actually like My Little Pony, made them like it even more, because it wasn't just they enjoyed the show, but they enjoyed this unique experience that they never expected and that nobody had ever seen before. So that I think is what really launched it, or launched that fandom, and made the show do as well as it did. Because you have the Brony fandom, which runs the gamut of age, gender, everything, but then there's still the little girls that know nothing about that side of the fandom that still like it as well.
In your face, internet, don't tell me what not to like. So you've worked with the toy company before. Would you work with toy companies in the future? And is there any franchise or any kind of like toy-based show that you would like to work on that you haven't yet?
I think the ship sailed on the two that I might have been interested in. One was Gem and the Holograms, and the other one was Strawberry Shortcake. But I think, you know, the ship sailed on those ones. Oh, and Rainbow Bright. I mean, I'm just going to go back to the 80s and the toys that I liked. I don't know if those options are out there. I think, you know, at this point in my career, my contracts are starting to read like prenups because I'm like, I'm only going to do it if this happens, and I'm only going to do it if there's this much money, and I'm only going to do it if the budget is like this, or the schedule is like this. So I would entirely be open to working with a toy company again, but I would have to know that, you know, certain things were understood. You know, story before toys. I had a lot of creative trust when I made My Little Pony and the reboot of DC Superhero Girls. I was working for people who trusted me. I didn't get a lot of interference. And I'm kind of spoiled by that now. I really prefer to work that way. So I would totally work for a toy company again, but it would have to be like under certain conditions. There would have to be some pretty strong understandings from the get-go. But it also depends on the toy. You know, it'd have to be something that excites me or inspires me and that I feel like genuinely has real capacity for storytelling. And they don't all do. A lot of them are just like, she has pretty hair.
It's okay to have demands, Lauren.
Thank you. I need the validation. I really do. Thank you.
I mean, I'm gonna say like the proof is in the pudding.
Thank you.
Your outlook and future on you know, consumerism tied with animation, like, is there a place for it? Can they coexist without it feeling you know, too icky? Like, what are your opinions, and what are your hopes for that, and like, how do you make it, like, you know, how do you solve all the problems, Lauren Faust, with consumerism and animation?
I believe 100% that animation and toys can coexist and both be great and support each other. I think great storytelling and great characters make for fantastic toys. I don't believe that all great toys necessarily make for great storytelling. But there's absolutely no reason that they can't coexist. But I think you have to come at it that the entertainment factor is first. Otherwise, it does feel like a commercial, and otherwise, you know, kids feel manipulated and talked down to.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Like, I mean, for me, like, prime example would be like something like The Simpsons, where it's like definitely not intended for kids. Yet they made Bartman t-shirts for grade school kids. You know what I mean? With all the catchphrases and all that stuff. And I was one of those kids. Guilty. And one of those man-childs that bought the reissue of the shirt that I had as a kid. So,
well, you know, it's just that when entertainment first, storytelling first, character first, that's what makes the show entertaining, and that's what makes the kids want to watch it. But it also is what makes the kids connect to the character. You might go to the store and see a toy that you've never ever seen before, and it's bright and it's shiny and it's colorful and it's pretty, and you just want to buy it. But when you're watching a TV show and you've watched episode after episode after episode, you start to connect to these characters. You start to feel like you're their friend. You start to worry about them. You start to wonder what's going to happen to them in the next episode, even when it's not serialized. You know, especially if you're working with characters that are truly flawed and have things to learn. If you're a kid and you connect to those characters and that show makes you happy, you are automatically going to want them in your house next to you. You either love them like a family member or a friend, and you want to hold them and you want to sleep with them in bed and cuddle with them, or you love those stories and you want more and you want to make them up yourself. And that's when you get the action figures and you the play sets, and if you're like me, if there's a play set that doesn't exist and you want one, you make one yourself, and it again sparks your imagination and your creativity. It's just a natural progression of really great characters, really great shows. The kids are just going to want to have those characters with them, beside them, all the time, which is why story first, toys second makes for the best combination when you're trying to get toys and content to work together.
Could you talk a little bit about how that would spark a new generation of storytelling?
So when these kids are inspired by these shows and buy these toys and play with them themselves and make up their own stories and make up their own characters, that's another thing that happens, especially when you're older. You're like, here's a team of superheroes and I'm going to put a new character in the team, and this is going to be my character and the one based on me. That when I'm writing, when I'm making cartoons, when I'm drawing, when I'm writing the scripts, when I'm dreaming it up in the first place and developing it, I'm accessing the part of my brain that pretended when I was a little girl. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. I go into that pretend place. So these toys and these shows that inspire kids when they're younger could possibly be like building the muscles of our future storytellers, if they're inspired by it. If they never saw it and they didn't have the toys, that muscle would never get flexed. So you see that now. I'm an example of a kid who loved the My Little Pony toys and then grew up and made a new My Little Pony show. I was the next generation. If Hasbro's lucky, there'll be the next generation as well, 20 years from now, who might have been inspired by my show and ready to take another spin on it for modern kids at that time. You see it with Ninja Turtles, you see it with DC superheroes, Marvel superheroes. It's like those stories inspired artistic and creative people to grow up and make the next version of it. It goes back to what we were saying before, that like there's this devaluing of cartoons, but it's making things happen in creative children's brains that can lead them to success later in life. But I obviously wouldn't have made My Little Pony if I didn't play with it. So it just seems like a natural progression.
So if you're watching this, all those years of you by yourself in your room talking in 5 different voices will pay off eventually. You will become the president of Hasbro, perhaps. I don't know. Or at least a showrunner.
Or a voice actor. A voice actor
a
as
voice
well,
actor.
Right?
That's for sure. I'm pretty sure my mom was like, "Phew, he's not crazy." As soon as she got some of her money back, she was fine. Well, cool. I don't know. I feel like we covered a lot. Thank you so much for spending time with us and talking about all of your experiences thus far. We really appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you so much, Eric, and everyone on the team for thinking of me and bringing me on to talk about this medium that I love just so very much. I appreciate your time thinking of me. So thank you very much.
Hey guys, Eric Bauza here, the host of Stay Tuned. If you like that video, be sure to check out these videos. Or they might be here. I don't know where they're going to put them. Somewhere in this vicinity. Be sure to hit the subscribe button